For folks that are still trickling in, we are recording. We will send out the recording after the meeting so that you can refer back to it. Um, but really the purpose of this webinar is to get ready for the changes that are coming um, regarding the new appraisal. Okay, so the UAD 3.6, and actually it's probably one of the biggest changes in the last 20 years. And, for real estate agents, we just want to make it clear that for you guys, this isn't really to help you become an appraisal expert. The goal is to help you understand the changes, what really is going to matter to you, and how you can better prepare yourselves, your buyers, your sellers, your listings for these changes because there will be impact. So this new appraisal form, the UAD 3.6, it's actually already being phased in. Some lenders are already using it, and it becomes mandatory as of November 2nd, 2026. So this new report is being described as a transition, a more data-driven appraisal. So more objective, less subjective, and more standardized to create more consistency. And today, what we really want to focus on is the practical side. So what will you as real estate agents, what will you notice? What data is going to matter more? What mistakes, can we get ahead of and avoid? And, how can agents help the appraiser to get the clearest and most accurate picture of the property? Um, so thank you guys so much for joining us today. We are really fortunate to have with us two experienced appraisers that are going to be answering questions for us. So I'd like to introduce Dan Mayer. He is the account and operations manager for Appraisal Links, which is the AMC that we depend on for all of our appraisal orders. So we have a really good panel. We have great relationship with Dan and his team. Also, Tim Eck is here with us. So Tim, an appraiser with CMS Appraisal Group, he does high quality work for us and for our team, which flows down to you guys because you're seeing that work on your end. Um, we also have Ryan Matei with us. He's a fellow loan officer in my office. He's here to host with us, and he actually he introduced me to Dan and Tim, which has been really helpful. So, um, the four of us, what we want to do here is we want to ask Dan and Tim some questions. What we thought would be really important questions regarding this new change. And also, the chat is open. So basically, as we're going through, we're going to try and answer your questions as well. I don't know that we'll get to all of them, but as we're talking through things that come to mind, please put your questions in the chat. Um, and we'll try and answer them. So we'll take it from there. So, I guess Dan, Tim, the first question that I think a lot of people have is just from a high level, a broad level. What is the UAD 3.6 in plain English?
Well, Bill, first of all, I just want to say thank you for having us. I appreciate the opportunity to come and speak for your realtors. Yeah, we do have Tim here, local appraiser in the area. We are also based locally, Appraisal Links, out of North Jersey, but we have offices around the Philadelphia area. So we know the market very well, and we're happy to answer any questions that you guys may have on 3.6. From what I know so far, it's still very fresh. We have a lot of appraisers just starting to go through the classes and get the full understanding of what the changes will be for November 2nd. But it really is a full overhaul on the appraisal report that we know. There will be no more 1004, 1073, 2055. It's going to be one fully dynamic report with a few different fields that I'll let Tim go into here. Um, but what have you seen, Tim, so far in your training with the 3.6 model?
So basically to 3.6, you're going to have three forms that is now one form. Um, and basically it is going to be specific to that property. So no more templating, no more generalization. Each individual report will be specific to each individual like property itself. So basically, as you will go out, say you go to a single family residence, you go to a multifamily, you go to a condo, that's where it starts. As you progress through the form will then populate and adjust to what exactly the property is, whether it's a multifamily, whether it's a single family, whether it's a condo form. It populates as you import the information from your inspection.
So really quick on that point, Tim, and for our realtor friends here. So a condo was a different form, a multifamily was a different form. Now it's all in one form, and it's kind of using some predictive analytic intelligence that as you start saying what it is that you're appraising, it'll start populating the appropriate portion of that form.
Correct. It'll, as you fill out the form, it'll populate. As you start incorporating information, it'll start altering the report as you then fill it out. The new 3.6 UAD, if you really want to get a good visual aspect, it's going to look like a home inspection report. That is the best way to absolutely compare it to. It's going to look like a home inspection report with a value on it.
Um, do you guys happen to have a copy that we could take a look at that we could share on the screen and review?
So it's kind of, there isn't really it, since it's so specific to each individual like property itself. I don't have a full form actually filled out yet. It's each individual sections as you're going along and trying to figure it out. Once we do get one filled out, which I would say be over probably the next 20 to 30 days, we can definitely forward it to you of a dummy property address, and then you can share it, with all your agents and loan officers. It's not a problem.
Awesome. So, guys, that's going to come our way. We will share the report. I know that I saw a couple of images of what I think was the correct report, and I want to say it looks a little bit more like a 1003. So, it's in line with some of the mortgage documents. So, they all look similar as far as the format of what that, at least the one I saw, what it looked like. And then one other question on that is, on the old report, for some reason, there was somebody who decided, let's like bury the value down on page 3 or 4 and make it. My understanding is the value is going to stick out more towards the beginning of the report on the new format. Is that correct?
So it'll be the similar to other. I mean, depending on what forms appraisers decided to send in a PDF, you could typically get the appraised value on the front page, or you could get it throughout the entire report. It's going to be similar to other appraisal reports. You're going to have it throughout the report, and you'll have it on the first page.
Okay. Awesome. Awesome. Now, big question that I think is out there that a lot of people are asking um, is this changing how homes are valued, or is this just changing the way that the appraisal is reported?
It is. This is the big thing. This will not have any effect on values whatsoever. This is simply going to affect the report itself. So this is going to have an effect on the appraisers in how we report the information and put it together and send it over to the mortgage companies.
Okay, great. So that I think that should be a sigh of relief that, the way that we value our properties, the way that agents write offers, look at comps. I think we're going to get into how there's more options. There's like a wider variety of things to choose and look at and maybe some more detail, but the general way that we value things is not changing.
Correct. Everything still stays the same. Not going to affect values, not going to affect adjustments. It's not going to have an effect on anything like that. The only thing it's going to have an effect is how the appraisers put together a report it, and then transmit it to the mortgage companies and lenders.
Excellent. Excellent.
Now, I will put an example picture in the chat, and Tim, you let me know if you are using the same software here. Uh, it's the example of a 3.6 and how they are organizing it right now with some building information there and some room count. They have different tabs, correct, Tim?
What's that? I'm sorry.
Don't they have different tabs and different sections within the report? It's no longer just one full report anymore.
Correct. You're gonna have to, yeah, each individual section, has different tabs breakdown. Like I said, it actually reports and it really reads like a home inspection report. You're going through the inside, the kitchens, the bedrooms, the bathrooms, everything is broken down. Exterior, you'll see your exterior photos. The other thing you will notice, which is probably the biggest change, is that exterior and interior photos will be kind of dispersed throughout the entire report. Whereas before we used to have one photo page. You're now going to see kitchens and bath photos under certain sections, exterior photos under another section. They're going to be spread out through the entire report. That is the
Yeah,
one big change.
yeah. The biggest thing I think change for realtors and the owners and their clients is uh, it's expected that the inspections are going to take much longer. What Fannie and Freddie are trying to do is spend more time at the property and less time at the desk. So a lot of the inspections that take 20 minutes right now are going to take about 45 to an hour, maybe sometimes depending on the house. But the biggest effect to realtors and their borrowers are going to be the inspections are going to take a little bit longer than that you're accustomed to now.
So basically, leave more time when scheduling an appraisal, as in many times before, the appraiser could be, in and out pretty quickly. At least in the short term, right? We're going to need to make sure that the appraiser has enough time to complete the report or do what they need to do on site. It's going to take longer, so build that time in.
Correct. The inspection, depending on how the appraiser wants to do it. I think the initial thoughts were from Fannie and Freddie that, tablets were the way to go, make the inspections, import all. If we did that, we'd be at a row home in Upper Darby for an hour. I think now from everything that you're starting to see is that's make the same inspection, that's collect all the information we still need to collect, get back into the office, and then import it into that until everything really gets, fine tuned with the tablets and everything. So yes, it's definitely going to take longer. How much longer, I think, would depend on how the appraiser wants to go about doing it. If he's really tablet oriented and wants to do everything at the property, going to take longer. If you get an appraiser, who has, a lot of office help, who can import that data, their inspection might take a little bit shorter, and therefore they can, spend more time in the office importing all the information from that standpoint.
Do you think that this is going to cause any delays as far as if the whole industry it's taking a little bit longer? Is there going to be a backup with, okay, we got it, like I want to rush something to close in 3 weeks. Is that going to be possible still in the short run, or should we be really careful? I know you don't know for sure, but what are your feelings on this so
I
far?
mean, listen, it's going to take longer. As time goes along, I think we'll get more accustomed to it. So in the very beginning, yeah, I mean, is it going to take us significantly longer, like twice as long to do an appraisal report? I don't think so. I think once everything starts kicking into gear and we start getting used to it, it's going to take a little bit longer, you know, but not as long as you would think. I think our turnaround times, as long as we still have due dates and expect it when reports are needed by, I can't see that being an issue.
And Bill, to follow up on that, from an appraisal management standpoint, what we're trying to do is, discussions like these, have these presentations, have these discussions about 3.6, prepare our appraisers, prepare our lenders, and prepare our realtors for the new change so that when the time comes, we don't see any significant delays. Of course, there still will be, a delay here and there, but if we can do our part and get everyone prepared, we should be right on track.
Well, and to that point, so our realtor friends, I want you guys to know that we rely pretty heavily on these guys and we are in communication with them. I mean, from the appraisal panels that we are able to choose to get high quality appraisers out to all your listings and your buy sides, more your buy sides. Um, but we're in constant communication with them. So what that means is if we have a rush scenario, all I need to do is reach out and say, do we have somebody that can accommodate? So it sounds like based on what you're saying that we're going to try and iron these things out and our relationship, we shouldn't see delays.
Correct. We want to try to be proactive instead of reactive here. So we'll be spending the summer, working with our appraisers, make sure everyone's prepared, and we'll have a very strong list of people who are ready for the change.
Awesome. Awesome. I do see a few questions here in the chat. Um, so yes, this is being recorded. Eric Jansen's, is there a template online? Um, you know, I saw a template. I've looked for some templates. I do think that, and Dan, you can um, confirm or deny here, but just based on what you said of, hey, software wise, appraisals look differently depending on the software that's used. Will it vary
Mhm.
just a little bit in look and feel based on the software, or are they all going to be exactly the same?
I
Uh,
think they're going to be exactly the same. They'll be
Okay.
exactly the same.
That's
And I think that's what they're doing right now is the software companies are working with Fannie and fine tuning everything. And I don't think and then they're coming out and getting accredited by Fannie saying that all right, they're ready to go. It looks is up to speed. So they're supposed to be uniformed. What Fannie's trying to do is uniform everything as one. Basically, it's good and a lot of data. It's going to be a lot of data going into the reports now and stuff like that. So they're just
okay.
trying to uniform everything. So that way, underwriters, processors, loan officers, borrowers aren't looking all over for the report and changes that were made to the report. So what they're trying to do is, every page is going to have a specific, designation, and that's where you're going to know where to go to find the value or find the comps or whatever. So it's going to what Fannie's trying to do is this uniform the appraisal report into one report.
And Dan, I guess, we saw this years ago when we got rid of the HUD and we went to a CD and all the CDs look exactly the same. So
Mhm.
there's really no question. They streamlined it and standardized it. If every appraisal has the same look and feel, I think it's going to create efficiencies throughout the process on your
Mhm.
end and also the way that the real estate agents read the reports and the lenders read the reports. So that should be a good enhancement.
Yeah, yeah. Like Tibby said in the beginning when they do the just like anything else, when they do the changeover from, the old report to the 3.6 report, it's going to take a little bit more time, but until they get used to it, just like any kind of change, there's always a little bit of a delay until everybody gets used to it and gets into the groove. But you're not going to see significant, you're not going from a week to 2 weeks. You may go from a week to a week and a day. You just may need a little bit more time. But we'll get used to it, and it will. November might be a little bit choppy, but by December, I think everything will get smooth again.
Okay, awesome. And another qu question here in the chat is, are we still going to have a grid? This is from Mary Thomas. Will the comparison of homes be shown in the report in our grid, the comp grid?
Yeah, you'll still have a grid, so it will look a little bit different. So the way they're actually going to do it now, the comparables will be stacked. So before, if you started adding four, five, six, seven comps, it would go on to an additional page. So the basically now what you'll see comps one, two, three, and then right underneath of them, four, five, six, and then one underneath of them, seven, eight, nine. As you add the comps, they start stacking them instead of going to additional pages. The grid looks a little bit different, but all the same items are still there. Everything still gets adjusted the same way, and we're still accounting for everything in the same way.
Another question here. Will this reduce subjectivity?
No.
Okay.
I hate to say that. That's probably as long as we're making inspections, as long as realtors are still going out to properties, you're always going to have subjectivity to every single property. We're always going to look at something differently than somebody else did.
Right.
I wish we could take that away, but you're not going to be able to. What it will create is more consistency, but 2.6 did that. All these reports get uploaded to a portal so we can see what other appraisers are reporting things as to keep everything similar and conditions similar and bedroom count, bath count, GLA. So, Fannie and Freddie has an idea of how all these properties are being reported, but from a condition standpoint to, hey, this place was nicer than that place, you're always going to have a little bit of subjectivity. We're not going to be able to get rid of that with this.
Okay. And really, really quick on that point, the 2.6 became send all the data to a certain place, so it's all being analyzed and utilized. Probably what allowed us to have more appraisal waivers, right? This is an enhancement of that data collection and detail, correct?
Mhm.
Um,
Correct.
Yes.
It's not, you're actually not collecting that much more data than what we already do. It's how we report it. So it can definitely be reported more accurately. But from an inspection standpoint, there's a couple extra things we'll be looking at, but not a whole lot more information that will be collected.
okay.
Would you say, Tim, would you say this could affect anything that's reported in MLS, such as like above grade square
I
footage
mean,
or
listen,
below grade square
we,
footage?
we still have to follow ANSI guidelines. We still have to follow all the specific guidelines on how we report all the information. So from that standpoint, nothing should change. They've been implemented years ago. I mean, realtors, unfortunately don't follow them, you know, the best now, but it's really up to us to determine what the property is and exactly the correct information to import. So we still have to do our research no matter, what we use, whether it's exterior inspections, county websites, old appraisals. We still have to determine how exactly that information gets reported and done the right way. So from an MLS listing, I mean, they still have to do their job, but it's our job to determine how it gets reported.
Okay. Um, another question here is, will we be able to send a sample report? So Kathy, we will, as soon as we obtain them, we'll send them out. We don't have one yet. Kathy Iannucci, Kathy asking, is this for both PA and Delaware? I want to say it's national, right?
Mhm.
National.
Correct.
Okay. Also, Susan is asking if it's just the report changing and how long it takes them, how does this affect us as agents?
Well, essentially, it shouldn't. I mean, that's the whole goal. You know,
Okay.
I mean, eventually, I think what their ultimate goal is that so much information over time gets reported accurately, that years down the line, everything will become streamlined and a lot more easier. But from an agent standpoint, I mean, the ultimate goal is for nothing to change. Yeah, in the very beginning, it could be a time issue, but it should have zero effect on value. Zero.
So I think it's really good that we're covering this now because when this starts to become a little bit more of a news headline in a few months and everybody's starting to get worried about it, everybody here just we want you to remember that the goal is that it's not going to be too much different than what you're already experiencing, which is a really good thing. So just like with any of the changes that are out there, the big change to the way that you can't list compensation on the MLS a few years ago, and things really, hadn't changed a whole lot. Maybe the way some of the paperwork's drawn up changed, but sellers are still paying buyers agents commissions, and that was like a big worry. Goal here is, guys, you don't have a ton to worry about. Things are going to be standardized, and the goal is to not cause a major issue in the market and disruption to your business. Another question. Um, this is one that we had too. So, question is, um, someone had it. When you look at agent comps,
I mean,
so so
we always consider comparables that are provided from agents. I mean, that's never going to change, but we still determine what sales we're going to use because essentially we know what the lenders are looking for and we know how we have to get from point A to point B. I have no issue whether it's via email, hard copy, send me whatever pertinent information they feel, they want us to look at. It doesn't necessarily mean I'm going to use it or I may already have them. But yeah, that's never a problem. That's nothing's going to change from then until now just because we're switching a report.
okay, good. So, and by the way, I watch sometimes agents say, "Hey, I want to, the buyer's agent wants to schedule to let the appraiser in, and maybe hand them some comps." Is it just as effective if they email those comps to you? It saves them a trip to the property.
No, I especially now it is if an appraiser needs to get through a property, it is really essential to try to get them through ASAP. Then they can start working on the report. There is no need to meet us at a vacant property to open up the lockbox or hand us comms. Send an email, send a text. We will always review all the information. That's my policy. I'm sure there are other appraisers that have different feelings on it, but I will always look at whatever they want to send via email or text. It's not a problem. It's more essential getting through that when we request the appointment day and time.
Awesome. Awesome. Here's another question. I know, so Anthony White, you've asked, are there any changes to how the home is appraised? It sounds like not any material change.
No,
Will this reduce drive-by appraisals?
I don't believe so. If anything, it's probably going to enhance more full inspections. This way they can collect more data. I mean, that's my opinion, but I don't think anybody can really give an answer to that right now.
Um, do we think that with these changes that there might be room for more appraisal waivers with this data change, or would that change that at all, or help us with?
Not in the near future, I don't think, but over the course of time, as this data gets collected and more streamlined and accurate, I mean, you could be talking years down the line, maybe that happens, but I don't think that's going to be a short-term thing that I could see happening. Maybe Dan has more information to that, but I can't see it happening until all this data starts getting collected and reported over time to where they'll start giving out waivers and drive-bys.
I would agree. I think it would take a few years for them to collect the data before they decide to pivot. And once they have all the data, they'll come up with a game plan. But I'd say for the next 3 to 5 years, we're okay.
Yeah. Okay. Um, so another question, will the UAD be rolling out earlier than the mandatory date? I think some people have been in pilots and rolling it out, correct?
Correct.
Slowly and like very, very, you know, in a very limited basis. They're not really rolling it out. They're taking certain lenders and certain products, and they're kind of rolling it out very slowly in a case by case kind of basis, kind of thing, in a controlled environment. It's not, you know, so they're still working out with the softwares and stuff like that, and there's a lot to go into it. So it's in a controlled environment that they're rolling it out.
Uh,
And it's only select lenders are allowed to roll it out.
Got it. Got it. Are we still comparing to the last three sales over the past 6 months, two pending and one active?
There's that is no appraisal guideline.
Right.
That may
So
that may be a lending guideline, but from appraisers, whether we have to go back 6 months or 12 months, our goal is to establish the most accurate value for the effective date of the appraisal. Whether we have to go back 6 months, 8 months, whether we have to go 5 blocks or a mile, Our goal is to establish the accurate current market value as of an effective date. There is nothing, there is nowhere where Fannie and Freddie says we can only stay within certain miles, certain blocks, certain anything. There are specific lending requirements that lenders would like us to see, certain things they would like to see on the report, but really it's our goal to provide the best value.
Yeah, I mean, that's great information because there is a lot of misconception surrounding X amount of comps within a certain time frame and within a certain amount of mileage. Now, obviously, the flip side to that comment is, look, your job is to provide the best comparables, but we can't like skip over a comparable and go further out to find our value. That's where we get in trouble, right?
Correct. Or where you ignore stuff that's, location is superior. If it's on your block, if you're in a condo, it's in your building. You can't ignore recent stuff. You can't just ignore the real good comps to chase a value. But there are no specific set parameters to where we can only go certain distances and certain times. Now, they do have to be within 12 months. They have to be within a year, but there are no distance parameters. If you're in a school district and say you border the district by 300 feet, you only have one direction to go. So obviously you're going to be distant. You can't do a radius on every single property to determine everything's going to fit in this nice little square box. It's not going to happen. Each individual property is going to be different based off its location.
Yeah, interesting. Um, Quick question on, so will there be a delineation on the condition of interior versus exterior?
There's more like tabs within the report itself to where the interior information will be reported, the exterior information reported, and then those photos will then collaborate from the interior side to the exterior side. Very similar to a home inspection. You're going through, as they go through each room, each level, the photos they take will match up to what they're explaining. It's now going to be very similar to an appraisal. When we're describing kitchens and baths, the kitchens and bath photos will be there. You're describing the exterior photos will be there. Unlike the last appraisal reports, it was one photo page with all the pictures. You're not going to see that anymore.
Interesting. So, like the home inspection, the picture of the bedroom is in the bedroom section, and the picture of the basement is in the basement section.
Correct. And that's what the new reports will also look like.
Okay.
With commentary there, correct?
Correct. With the commentary underneath of it, but the photos will be dispersed throughout the entire report to match the interior, exterior, any needed repairs, any depreciation, any renovations, that type of thing.
Now, this could be good for realtors to read when the new report comes out. And when you do select your comps, you have commentary right under these pictures of the bedroom, of the bathroom, showing the condition, the quality, and everything else that went into it. I think could be very good for comp selection.
Yeah, and tell me as far as, when we're putting together a list for an appraiser of upgrades, okay? And trying to make sure that we're capturing the value in certain ways. And you guys do an amazing job of it. So, like rest assure everybody here that these guys are on our side and they're doing a really good job to try and get there. But if the realtor really wants to be impactful and provide a list of upgrades, any recommendations on how granular and would that be any different or more impactful in the new format?
No, I mean, listen, whatever upgrades or updates they want to provide to us, that's always helpful. You do have to remember we're making an inspection of the property, so we can still visually see what's there. The list of upgrades and renovations really plays a major part. Say if the property's just been recently purchased over the last couple of years, when I bought it, this is what it was, and now this is what I'm selling it. Or I'm refinancing. I just bought it a couple of years ago. These are all the renovations I did. But if you renovated a kitchen 10 years ago and it's got granite countertops, stainless steel appliances, we're still going to walk through that. We can still visually see how nice it is. We can still visually see the updates. So whatever list they want to provide to us, it definitely helps. but we're still actually visually looking at them when we walk through the property to get a feel for these properties and the overall condition.
It's your job to do the inspection, and you guys do a really good job of it. And usually, you're catching all of the upgrades. That said, if the agent wants to provide a list, it will be considered.
Oh, 100%. And it always helps. Hey, listen, I just did a kitchen 4 years ago. That's great. You can still put it in a report. Kitchen was renovated over the last couple of years. But it's not like you're going to get deducted because you did your kitchen 10 years ago and you still keep, in really good condition. We're still going to see that when we get out to the property. So, yeah, it definitely helps a lot more if it's just been recently purchased over the last couple of years and now being resold, or if it's a flip. Hey, here's my list of reno. I just put $100,000 into this property. Here it is. That's great. You can always import into the document, into the appraisal. Here's a list of renovations provided. So things like that do help, but essentially we still have to walk through the property, visually take notes, and see exactly the quality of the renovation too.
Excellent, excellent. Here's another question. Are the primary changes just in how the report is served up and a more comprehensive inspection from Lisa?
Correct. A little bit more of a comprehensive inspection. There's a few little more details we'll be taking. We'll be taking a couple extra measurements on the interior and exterior, a few extra pictures. Again, not going to take terribly long, depending on how the appraiser about doing it, whether that's tablet or just taking down notes. But essentially, the biggest change is going to be how it's reported in a form.
Does staging versus an empty house change anything?
Not from an appraisal standpoint. Has zero effect.
Right, right. So personal items, unattached property, things that are really not real estate. And we see a lot when they're included on the agreement of sale where we say, hey, we need to make a statement that these add no value to the property. Also makes sense in this standpoint. You know, maybe a buyer going through a house could be moved or swayed on what they think the house is worth if it's fully staged, but an appraiser is too skilled to let that affect their opinion of value.
Yes, correct. A stage tone will never have any effect on us.
Got it. What do you think about any rumblings about the cost of the appraisal changing due to it seems like some extra work?
I mean, that's definitely in play. Every appraiser is anticipating an increase in the cost of the appraisal. Obviously, it can't go through the roof. These people are still trying to buy a home in an affordable way. So we still have to have that understanding. But I think having to understand a little bit more work, I think there's probably a happy medium there. But, essentially, we still have to be realistic that, this process still has to be reasonable. You can't charge an exorbitant amount for an appraisal, but I do think an increase will be incurred.
Okay. Watch out for the increase, folks. What's the average cost of an appraisal?
Right now it's 550 for a regular conventional appraisal.
Okay.
525, 550.
And I kind of shifting gears just before we shift gears, we have a few minutes left here. Anything else that you guys want to make sure that we're not missing and that we know regarding the new 3.6? And then I wanted to just shift gears for a second once we kind of cover that.
Well, I think everything's pretty much been, covered. Once you have a comprehensive understanding of, it's basically just a new way to report all the information in a report. Yeah, I mean, from a realtor aspect, borrower aspect, it's going to get a little bit used to, having an understanding of reading it. I do think the one thing that they're probably going to have an understanding, they're going to have to realize, which we are starting to see this in a lot of, a lot of the documentation that we're reading, is these agents can't be calling appraisers and being like, can you explain this form to me? I hate to,
Mm.
but that's going to be the one thing we just, A, we're not allowed to, but two, we just don't have the time to. So, an explanation of the form or how we, apply the adjustments in the form, like they just can't be calling like appraisal companies and ask them to do that. And that's one thing that I think a lot of people are nervous about, that at least I am reading about too.
I
Okay.
do want to point out something, Bill, that's very important that it's going to affect your realtors and the appraisers is this is a Fannie and Freddie initiative. FHA is not on board right now. So the FHA appraisals as we speak today are not going to be changing over to the 3.6 model until we hear further. Well, there's no noise, there's no updates from FHA when it comes to appraisals. This is a conventional appraisal update. As everybody thinks that Fannie was or FHA is going to follow, but FHA is usually, behind Fannie and Freddie. Just so everybody's aware that you're still going to get the old report when it comes to FHA
Yeah,
come
that's
November
that's
2nd.
good to know. How about VA?
I don't know. That Timmy would know that. We don't deal with VA. VA is its own
Oh yeah,
special
VA is a
portal and
different.
stuff like that.
Yep, yep.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Uh,
But I don't think VA is on board yet either. Um, in that way because the portal's got to change, everything's got to change and stuff like that. So right now, FHA is not on board with this change.
USDA, do we know if that's changing?
USDA goes into the conventional portal, so yes, USDA will be changing
Okay,
because it goes into the same portal as conventional.
okay. Um, Tim, just backing up to your comment, so currently, do you get those questions about the grid and how this, hey, I've got X amount of square feet, and you said, I know the questions you're talking about, right? Do you get a lot of those currently?
no, you don't. And that's, essentially you don't because it's pretty cut and dry when you look at the report. But a lot of the things that I have been reading and a lot of the concerns is that these appraisal companies are now going to get bombarded with phone calls from agents, from borrowers. Hey, I don't understand what this says. Like, where'd you come up with this? Or, where's this in the report? That is the one concern that I am starting to read that could possibly occur, but it's just something we won't be able to do.
So basically, it's like if there's a deluge of calls coming in about this stuff, there's no manpower to add that to the workload. But I guess how would you suggest that we help our realtor partners with understanding the new report? Like, I guess one question is, I hate to put you on the spot, by the way, but maybe we could, once it's been out for a while, maybe we could hold another class and review the report and educate on it.
100%. And I think that's going to be for everybody. You're going to see the do's and don'ts. You're going to see, the majority of the questions that you'll be getting after this is out for the first couple months. And once that happens, then you could really be like, okay, this is the one question I get a lot. This is where you can locate this piece of information. And essentially, the more and more that everybody starts to view it, whether it be borrowers and realtors and LOs, you do become more familiar with it. It's definitely going to be in the very beginning where it's just going to be a, get to know it case. You
Yeah,
just really get familiar with it.
yeah, like they understand the current format in short fashion. They're going to understand the new format. And by the way, the good news is all the realtors on this call are great agents. They know what the houses are worth. We don't have a lot of value issues. So we're not coming back to you guys disputing a lot of appraisals because they're instructing their buyers to pay what it's probably going to appraise for in most cases. So don't be fearful. I'm saying this to our realtor friends. Don't be fearful because we're not dealing with a lot of that anyway. But we're happy to educate on the new report as we learn more. Um, so I did want to just shift gears really quickly, guys, if you don't mind, into just a couple of general appraisal questions. When you have the appraiser at your disposal, these questions come up. So
You got to make
generally,
it worth the while, right,
yeah,
Bill?
right. We got to squeeze everything out of it that we can. So, one question that we have here that I think is a great question. So Tamika asks, um, what value does an in-ground pool have on homes today? I love to know that too because I have one.
So I get this question all the time. Every single adjustment will vary market to market. That is the best way I can explain that to you. Every in-ground pool 99% of the time does have value. It's up to us to determine the value. So you can't put a dollar point on anything. It varies market to market. Listen, some markets, more than others, and that's where we come in. When we have programs that we can import data and it kind of shoots us out range of values. We have different ways of determining what the adjustment will be, but each market will have its own adjustment for each.
Spoken like a true politician.
I wish I could give something more clear than that, but
No, but that makes sense then.
25 to $30,000
Yeah.
Well,
starting out.
but here's the thing, a pool is not, some people won't buy a house because it has a pool, right? During COVID, if it had a pool, that was value because pool companies were so backed up and everybody was trying to vacation at home. So case by case makes a lot of sense. It's not clear cut.
And I'll give you an example of what Timmy's saying is we'll speak about a garage in Philadelphia. How much value does a garage in Philadelphia? Well, it's a lot more value in Rittenhouse Square than you have up in, like, say, Brewerytown or something like that. So that's what Timmy's saying. It depends on the area. And like a garage in Society Hill is a lot more valuable than South Philly in a way. So
Makes a lot of
um,
sense.
so that's what Timmy's kind of saying. You can't really put a certain value on it and stuff like that.
Makes a
But
lot of sense.
it depends on the area. Like a pool in Florida is not as valuable as a pool in, Pennsylvania kind of thing.
Right. Everybody has a pool in Florida.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Right. What about solar panels?
so solar panels are a lot more valuable when they first they become oversaturated at this point. Almost everyone has solar, not everyone. There's a lot more solar panels that are out there. Um, from my standpoint, I've never really come across a property recently that I've made positive adjustments for. There are some people that don't like solar panels. There are some townships that don't even let you put them on the front of the house because they deter. So, from a solar panel standpoint, we do have to note whether they're owned or leased. We do have to comment on them. They are a nice amenity. They could be something very favorable to a buyer if that's something they're looking for. But an appraisal standpoint, most cases, we're not really making a positive adjustment. Most cases, not saying every case, in most cases, we're not really making a positive adjustment because A, you can't really determine the exact value, but they have become oversaturated at this point. They're everywhere now.
They're everywhere. Okay. Interesting. Interesting. Um, I don't know if we have any other questions, if anybody wants to put anything in the chat, I mean, um, maybe another question is like, are there any are there any things that, myths about appraising that, lots of people believe that really just aren't true, that we could, a broad myth that you guys hear all the time that we could maybe demystify?
Not necessarily, no. We're not the big bad evil people. Trust me, we're not out there to cut values all the time.
Well, wait a minute. That's the myth right there, though. Hold on a second, because because I always say appraising can be a thankless job. There's a lot of times, and over the years, we've been super fortunate to work with so many great appraisers that really want to do the right thing. And when I see values not come in sometimes, it's like, well, there's still a methodology that I need to use to value this property. And using those data points, it's a really hard way to get to that value. And so what I mean is, I think right there you've hit on a really super point, is just that you guys are out there to help people buy houses and sell houses and do the right thing. If something's not coming in and we're not making value, it it just can't be expressed using the methodology set forth by Fannie, Freddie, and any other body. Is that fair to say?
That's definitely, yeah, it's without a doubt, definitely fair to say.
Yeah, and I've, previous to 2009 in HVCC, I talked to appraisers a lot more and had a lot of great relationships. We don't talk to you guys as much. It's a little different way that we communicate these days, but I think that's right there, just a great place to probably, you know,
And
stop.
I think the most important too thing is, oh, we're not perfect. I think that's essentially one of the most important things. And I tell agents all the time, they still are the eyes and ears of these properties. They're showing these buyers, you know, multiple properties sometimes before they buy one. When we're going, we might see some of the comps that we use, but essentially we're not perfect. We might try to do our best to establish what a comparable is, how many bedrooms, how big it is. But essentially, these agents and buyers are the eyes and ears. So if we miss something or, misaccurately report something, they still are there to help us out too. So I think the communication there really is essential.
I love that. Like, we're not perfect. So hence, send over your comps just in case. Look, they probably didn't miss anything, but just in case, send it over, especially on one where you feel like it might be a little hard to comp out anyway, not super cookie cutter. Um, and also, if there's renovations that we really need to consider, provide a list, and you guys are always willing to consider them. You probably already are, but let's be thorough.
100%.
Love it.
Hey Tim, I have a quick question for you. It's Ryan Matei.
Sure, no problem.
Yeah, so when let's just say you're looking at a house, you're working out, and this is going to come in low. Like, I think it's important for realtors to understand, like, what's your what do you try to do? I know you can only reach a certain amount of value, but I mean, I've seen this before. Like, you guys are calling the realtors, right? Seeing maybe if you miss something, stuff like that, right? Like, your pride, like, in my experience, I don't feel like, I mean, I know there's some exceptions to the rule, but I don't feel like there's a lot of times where I think you guys want to find the value. You're not trying to not, and you're not trying to kill deals. And I think it's important. Like, what do you do to try to
So me
remedy that?
personally, I think every appraiser is different how they handle it. I mean, in this current market, one, I usually start by looking at the agreement. If they're
Mhm.
waiving appraisals and they're going over list price or they're doing that, that's usually where I start. But anytime I have a value issue, I literally will always put it in the listing agent's hands and say, give me the comps. Because until I physically put it on paper and cut the value, I am giving them every opportunity to make their point made to me. And if they don't have anything, at least I can go back and say, you didn't give me anything. Or
Right.
maybe they give me one or two that, I missed. I'll use it. But I am always going to give them the opportunity before I finish the report.
What's the best way they can send you the comparables, Tim?
I mean, listen, via email, via text. I mean, I'm very hands on. I always have a conversation, or at least reach out to the agents, whether it be the buyer's agent or listing agent, if I am having value issues, and say, hey, listen, what's your thoughts? I saw you waive the appraisal. Sometimes they tell me, we don't expect this thing to go over list price. My buyers wanted it. They're willing to make it up. I always have that conversation depending on, what the agreement of sale looks like and how it was written up. And then I'll contact both agents.
Awesome. Guys, Dan, Tim, thank you so much for taking your time out here to help us with this change and some other general appraisal questions. You guys are our go-to guys. So if something doesn't come in, these are the guys that you want to. No, I'm kidding. That's a joke. But these guys are fabulous. We're thrilled to have them on our team. And we will send out a copy of this. This was recorded. We'll send it out after we exit here. But I want to be mindful of everybody's time. And I think we've kind of come to the hour here. So thanks so much, everybody. Have a great day and a great holiday weekend.
Sounds great. Thanks. You too.
Thank
Thank
you.
you, Bill. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.